Ever wonder what it takes to ask someone for millions of dollars? Well, today, we're diving into an investment pitch for a company called OTTIMEDIA. And let me tell you, it is a fascinating piece of persuasion, making some of the biggest claims I think I've ever seen. So let's pull back the curtain and break down the story they're selling.
Right out of the gate, the pitch just comes out swinging. This one line sets this incredibly dramatic winner-take-all tone. See, it's not just an investment anymore, it's a race. The message couldn't be clearer. You either act now or you're going to get beaten to the punch by someone smarter.
So how do you create that level of urgency? Well, if you're OTTIMEDIA, you go straight for the celebrity playbook. You start by dropping some of the biggest names on the entire planet. Yeah, you heard that right. The pitch immediately frames this whole thing as a high-speed race between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Putting those two front and center is a really powerful psychological move, right? Suddenly, it's not just about money, it's a competition that you're being invited to win before they can. And you know, the language here is so deliberate. This two foxes analogy, it paints the whole thing as this clever strategic move, something that only people with, a special kind of vision can see. The subtext is screaming, the smart money is already on the move, so if you want to be smart too, you better get going. Okay, so that brings us to the numbers. Because a race this big needs a prize to match. And believe me, this document lays out some pretty wild figures to justify all the hype. Here's the price of entry, $6 to $9 million. Now look, in the real world, that is a ton of money. But the pitch is smart. It frames this as a relatively small investment, like it's just a tiny seed for the giant money tree they're about to promise you. And there it is, the payoff. We're not talking over 5 or 10 years. The pitch is promising a mind-blowing $900 million in revenue in the very first year of operations. Just let that sink in for a second. That's not just ambitious. It's a number that pretty much redefines what high growth even means. And they make it super clear that $900 million is just the beginning. They're promising extremely high revenues and exponential growth. I mean, they're not just aiming for the sky here, they're aiming for a whole other galaxy. This isn't a one-time cash grab, it's the beginning of an empire. So, here's the hook. It's all about creating this feeling of exclusivity. This quote positions the first investor as a true insider, warning that everyone else, these pseudo-investors, they're just going to be left on the sidelines, watching with regret. It's classic FOMO, fear of missing out, and it's super effective. Okay, look, 100x return in year one sounds incredible. But it also sounds incredibly risky, right? A projection that huge just screams one question. What's the catch? Well, the pitch knows you're thinking that, and it has a very, very bold answer. I mean, this is the first thing that would pop into any investor's head. Returns like this are almost always tied to an insane amount of risk. It's just how the game works. But instead of talking about the risk, the pitch just doubles down. It makes maybe its boldest claim yet, that this opportunity comes with, and I'm quoting, practically without any perceptible risk. High reward, no risk. That's the holy grail of investing, isn't it? So how on earth do they claim they pulled it off? Well, their reasoning is actually pretty simple. It boils down to these two steps. First, every single customer pays for the entire year right up front. And second, all of that cash, all of it, is in the bank within 7 days. So according to the pitch, that front-loaded model just wipes out the financial risk before the company even gets started. All right, so what is this business that's supposed to be cranking out these massive, totally risk-free returns? Let's pull back the curtain on the product itself. So here it is. The big idea is to run massive, live digital ads on the sides of skyscrapers in major cities all across the globe. Just picture it. Huge, impossible to ignore digital billboards covering entire buildings. And of course, the launch plan is just as huge as everything else. They're talking about a single massive presentation day event. They'll showcase 100 advertisers and broadcast the whole thing live to a global audience of, get this, over 100 million people. So how do you get 100 advertisers to jump on board? With a simple, really powerful value proposition. Check out the comparison they make. A single ad in Times Square could cost you $2 million for just 1 month. Meanwhile, they're offering global exposure on a skyscraper for an entire year for a tiny fraction of that price. And they don't just say they're cheaper. Oh no. The pitch claims the rates are 120 times extremely lower. You gotta love the all caps emphasis, right? They really, really want that point to land.
And remember that exponential growth they promised earlier? Well, here's how they plan to do it. Once they've got that initial group of clients hooked with those low-ball rates, the plan is to double the prices every single year.
So, to wrap this all up, the pitch actually leaves potential investors with one last piece of advice. And honestly, it's probably not what you'd expect. Yeah, in a really surprising twist. After all those huge claims, the pitch itself tells investors to be skeptical. It literally says to ask for the details and to really dig into the math behind that massive $900 million projection. And that leaves us with the $1 million, or I guess $900 million question. Is this a blueprint for a truly revolutionary company, an unprecedented opportunity? Or is it a masterfully built pitch that's just, well, a little too good to be true? The document has laid out its vision. I'll let you be the judge.